What is up guys, Alex from Lakey Wargames here and welcome to today's video. Now a few weeks ago we did the RIP Harvesters 2K Revenge list and today we're going to be revisiting it and seeing the 2.0 version of that list as promised. Alrighty, so about 3 weeks ago we got the June FAQ and for the Ossiarch Bonereapers there was a massive shake up to the way that the harvesters are used and the way that they work within our armies. The resurrection mechanic was completely nerfed and is now only usable in one phase instead of all phases. I did do a recap video on the FAQ, so if you guys want to check that out, it's linked in the description below and you can get all my thoughts and my feedback on the FAQ as it came. And what I did is I came up with a brand new list because my old list, one of the cores, and it's the core to a lot of OBR list, was a 20-man block of Mortek Guard with a harvester in tow as support. But in my personal opinion, the harvesters at their current state, with their current points, along with Mortek Guard, are just not worth paying sort of a quarter of your army to have those 20 guys and the harvester in tow. They are still completely usable, don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing them completely. A little bit, maybe a little bit, but like if you still want to play harvesters, you still want to play Mortek Guard, that's fine, it's completely doable, but you just have to change your mentality and your mindset towards doing so, because now the way that they work, they're not as durable as they were, so you can't kind of throw them to the wolves as such and just hope that they don't die. You have to be a bit more tactical minded and in the way that you use them now. So what I did when I saw this FAQ is I went back to the drawing board with my list. I took out the Mortek Guard, I took out the Harvester, and it was a bit difficult to sort of rearrange it completely with the list that I was using because it was such a staple part of my list. So I came up with what I called the RIP Harvesters 2K Revenge list, and that was basically a list made out of spite for having the Harvester nerfed the way it was. Now there were some glaring difficulties with that list. It was a decent list, I still sort of stand by it, but as we pointed out as we went through, I did a whole video and a breakdown on that list. If you guys want to see that one, that is also linked in the description below. But today we're going back to the drawing board yet again. As I promised in that video, we would create the list and then go through the evolution stages of that list, change it up, make it stronger as we are going. Obviously we're changing into a new General's Handbook, so we don't 100% know what that is yet. There was a small article that came out and gave us a little glimpse into it. We know it's going to be based around sort of non-unique wizard heroes, but we'll see how that comes when it comes in full fruition. But this is the list I'm thinking of running and is the list that I'm going to be running into that GHB when it comes out. So, just like we did last time, I'm going to run through the list first. I'm just going to read it all the way through. I'm going to put it up here on the screen for you guys, and then we're going to dive in and we're going to break it down and see why things are in the list and why I took them. Alrighty, so the faction of this army is Ossiarch Bonereapers. The sub-faction is Null Myriad. The grand strategy is the Scales Balanced, and my triumph is Bloodthirsty. Now we have 3 heroes in this list. We have Arcan the Black, we have Mir Kanan, and we have a Mortisan Boneshaper who is our general. Our Mortisan Boneshaper general has the Diversionary Tactics command trait. He has the Artisan's Key artifact. His extra spell is Reinforced Constructs, and for the moment his aspect of the champion in the current GHB is fueled by Gurish Rage. Obviously that's going to change when the new GHB comes out. Don't know what it's going to be yet, so we'll just see when the time comes. We have 3 battle line in this list, and they are 6 Immortus Guard, 5 Kavalos Death Riders, 5 Kavalos Death Riders. We have 2 Mortek Crawlers, single units, and we also have Kanan's Reapers. We've got 3 endless spells in this list, and that's the Nightmare Predator, the Soul Stealer Carrion, and the Snoll? Oh no. The Soul Snare Shackles. There we go. I'm going to leave that in there, because, yeah, that's that's a one and done. And we have 1 battalion to wrap this all up, and that is the Ossiarch Cohort. For terrain, obviously we have our Bone Tice Nexus. This list is 2,000 points on the dot. It has 0 allies. We only used 1 of our 4 reinforcement points, that being on the Immortus Guard. There's 111 wounds to this list, and it does wrap up nicely into a 1-drop thanks to that Ossiarch Cohort. So, First things first, what changed? So the old list, the old version of this list, I'll quickly read through that as well. That was a Mortis Praetorian list. It had Catacross, Arcan, Mere Canaan, 10 Mortek Guard, 2 units of 5 Death Riders, 2 Mortek Crawlers, Canaan's Reapers, and just a Bone Tithe Shrieker. The first glaring thing that we had with that list is because it was just 3 named characters as our heroes, we had no access to command traits or an artifact. Now, I did point that out in the video when I wrote the list at the time. I knew going in I was kneecapping myself because having a command trait and an artifact is just basically free bonuses for your army. So I really had to weigh in which hero, you know, needed to make way to have space so we can have someone or unit to drop to be able to add in another hero. I thought about dropping a Mortek Crawler and putting a 4th hero in, but again, the Mortek Crawler, as we get onto it, it's redundancy. We needed 2 of them in there to limit the redundancy, because if you fire the 1 Mortek Crawler and it doesn't work, then you really need that second one to sort of saving grace you on the way home. And the reason for that is because even with the new iteration of the list, which is a bit more, it's got a bit more backbone to it. Bone joke again. It's got a bit more backbone to it because we've got that 6 Immortus Guard in here over the 10 Mortek Guard. Obviously they're a lot more tanky, they're a lot more beefy, they're going to be sticking around a lot more. It gives this list a bit more of punch. Yeah, just dropping that crawler and adding in another hero didn't help solve that problem, so we decided to put Catacross in the bin. We've kept Arcan because Arcan and Mere Canaan, the whole point behind this list is it's a very control list. It's very fragile, it wants to be able to hit you on its own terms and not get hit back in the process. So we dropped Catacross because Catacross is a great frontline fighter. He's amazing at being able to buff all your troops and make them hit really hard and be a bit more tanky. But in this sort of list, that's not really what we're aiming for, so we don't really need his buffs, we don't really need that presence in the list. So by dropping him straight away, it also freed us up 440 points to then be able to reinforce the rest of the list. So straight away it was Catacross out, Bone Shaper in. The Bone Shaper, not being a named character, again gave us access to the command trait and the artifact. We also were able to buy the Immortus Guard as well, because by taking the Bone Shaper, obviously Bone Shaper is only 120 points, Catacross is 440, so we then also dropped the 10 Mortek Guard who are 150 points, and we slotted in 6 Immortus Guard for 400. The Bone Shaper having that command trait and the artifact, the Artisan's Key, is just great for more healing. Again, it's a very fragile list, so being able to double tap the Bone Shaper's ability to double heal units is great, because when our units do get hurt, we want to keep bringing them back up to full. We also have the scales balanced as our grand strategy, which is the one at the end of the game. You need we need one of the Death Riders units or a Mortek Guard, which a lot of people I don't think have seen this yet, but Canaan's Reapers do have the Mortek Guard keyword on their war scroll. So if I can keep either Canaan's Reapers or either unit of the 5 Death Riders at full strength at the end of the game, then we score our grand strategy. Obviously Bone Shaper being able to double tap them heals, Arcan having a massive AoE heal. As long as we can get one of them running away to the backboard or onto an objective, hopefully away from the fight after we've done the sort of the thick mean tricks that we need to do during the game, at the end of the game we just hide one of them and we heal them up and score that way. Diversionary Tactics plays in greatly, helping our control. That's the one that limits the enemy -3 to their charge if they are within 12 inches of the general. So the idea is that the Bone Shaper is going to be sitting amongst the 6 Immortus Guard probably at all times throughout the game, healing up the Immortus Guard, hopefully bringing them back. Between him and Arcan, Arcan can heal off the sort of loose wounds, and then the Mortis and Bone Shaper gets the chance at rolling with 3+ to bring back a whole Immortus Guard. I understand without Catacross in this list, giving them the innate +1 save, obviously being able to save stack that way, they're not as tanky as they would have been in a Catacross list, but they are still 5 wounds each at a 3+ save, you know, with their 6+ ward, and then you can dip into the commands or the spells. You know, we've got reinforced constructs in here, we've got Arcan who has access to the entire spell lore. There are still so many ways to make those Immortus Guard tanky, even though not as tanky in a Catacross list compared to the other options that we had. Compared to the 10 Mortek Guard in the version 1 of this list, 6 Immortus Guard with a Bone Shaper with the Artisan's Key behind them are going to be staying around for a lot longer. Then also, if you factor in the diversionary tactics, making everyone -3 to charge while they're within 12 inches of him, then the enemy are going to have a really hard time trying to get in. Now what I do have is I do have a picture that I'm going to put up on the screen for you guys, so if you were just listening along, just take a quick 30 seconds just to glance up at the screen. This is a sort of a mock photo, if you will. I just laid the bases out. I like to do this with a lot of lists. I did this with my Sylvaneth a lot in 2.0 Age of Sigmar, where I had a list of lots of teleporting through the trees. I had like the Tree Lord Ancient who could like once per turn just teleport through the trees. Then I'd bring a unit in from reserves, and then there was also your faction ability to be able to teleport one unit a turn as well. So I could basically get 3 units teleporting at any one times through the Wildwoods, and I used to do this sort of Alpha Strike shooting with the Tree Lord, and then with the Tree Lord Ancient. Then I also had Drycha, and then I also used to summon in a Tree Lord because I had Alariel as well, and then she would fly up, and it would just basically be this whole teleporting Alpha Strike moving castle kind of thing. And I used to practice a lot of the time measuring my distances and making sure everything was all good to go, and it's a really good practice that I've started doing with a lot of my other lists. I know that these are just empty bases at the moment because I'm heavily working on a lot of the models that aren't present, but you can see how we are going here. So we got the Ossiarch cohort. Another big plus compared to the old list is that this list is now a 1-drop. The old one was a 2-drop because you can't fit Arcan and Catacross in the same list because they're both too big on the wounds caps, so they can't both be the leader. But now we can fit everyone inside the 1-drop, and the only downside is, that with the Ossiarch cohort, every unit has to be within 6 inches of 2 or more other OBR units when they're deployed. But you can see we have the 6 Immortus Guard at the front, the Bone Shaper is tucked in just behind them, then we've got the 2 units of Death Riders forcing out sort of our front rank. Obviously this is just on my desk at home as well, so terrain on a table may factor in. You may be able to deploy in such a way you can use the terrain to your advantage. The pie plate in the middle is where Arcan would be, and the 2 to either side of that are where the Mortek Crawlers go. And then you've got Canaan's Reapers just hanging around in the background. The terrain and all the endless spells obviously aren't really positioned anywhere, they're just sat on the desk because I wanted a shot of all of it together. But you get the sort of idea of how you could deploy out here. And with that diversionary tactics leaning 12 inches across to the front, you could reposition this slightly. This was just, again, it was just a quick mock-up photo, but if you really wanted, you could tuck the Mortek Crawlers in a little tighter, you could bring the Death Riders in a little bit tighter, you could bring them back probably a couple of inches, so where the sort of second Mortek Guard are in the rank, and then that way that the Immortus Guard are the furthest ones forward, so if anyone wants to charge your Death Riders, it's harder for them. And then you've got that diversionary tactics front and center bubble of the -12, -3 to charge in a 12-inch bubble. That leads me on to the next big change in this list. So in the old list we only had the 1 endless spell, and that was the Bone Tithe Shrieker. We now have, thanks again to the points changing of dropping them, the Mortek Guard and Catacross, we got a lot more things to play up with. I had to make the hard decision to get rid of the Bone Tithe Shrieker. I really love the Bone Tithe Shrieker, but at 50 points it was just that little bit too much expensive. I did toy around with having the Burning Head. I didn't have Shackles in here to start with, I had the Burning Head, and then I didn't have the Predator, I had the Shrieker, because being able to sort of mess around with the enemy's Battle Shock, and to also be able to do that -1 to wards is really, really nice. But then Shackles, someone pointed it out in our Discord, and Shackles is absolutely amazing for what we're trying to achieve. So Shackles is that spell, it's a casting value of 7, usually you have to deploy it, I think it's within 8, but then don't forget we've got Arcan in this list, so any Death Wizards, if Arcan's casting it himself, which is probably what we're going to be going with because Arcan's got that built-in +2 to cast, so he only needs a 5 to get Shackles off in the first place, but he gets to add that 6 inches to the cast. So that means we get to throw Shackles out 14 inches away, and that any enemies that get within 6 inches of Shackles can no longer run or charge. So if we go back to that photo again quickly, you can see we've got Death Riders on either flank and Arcans in the middle there. You can easily throw shackles over the top of one of the Death Riders. You lane them out. There's 3 models that make up the shackles, and then the enemy won't be able to charge while they're within 6. So you can, in essence, shut down an entire flank of the enemy's army, or being able to charge in from a certain way. Again, terrain dependent. It's hard to sort of, it's hard to visualize it, but obviously it has to depend on each board that you play on, because every board's different, every terrain layout is different. So playing this sort of tactical list, this sort of gimmicky mindset list, is something that changes on a game-to-game basis, so you do have to bear that in mind. The other staple that we're still leaning on very heavily in this list is we've got Mir Kanan. Now in this photo he's right down front and centre, just off to the right side of the Immortus Guard and the Death Riders. We're going to be leaning on his Dire Ultimatum spell, which is the casting value of 4. It's usually a range of 3, but again, as we just mentioned, Arcan boosts everything by 6, so that means that you can now cast this within 9. What happens is you pick one enemy unit that's within range and visible to the caster, and until the next hero phase, any attacks made with melee weapons must target this unit, aka Mir Kanan. And the range of the spell must be measured from the caster, even if an ability would allow you to measure it from elsewhere. That basically just means that you wouldn't be able to cast it through anything like a portals, but because with Arcan's ability you're still casting it from Mir Kanan himself, you're only extending the range and not where you're casting it from. That means you can now cast this up to 9 inches away. So not only do we have shackles now being able to shut down one side of the board, which we didn't have before, and we've still got Mir Kanan with the cheese with Arcan that somehow survived the FAQ, but after what they did to the Harvesters, I'm all game for it. It'll probably get taken away in the next FAQ. But as you can see from this photo where I've positioned Mir Kanan, if you think if it's still only within 3 inches, if the enemy only gets 1 unit through, because say you shut down one side of the board, then the enemy's going to be able to charge through the gap that you're forcing them to make. Then they're going to get hit by the diversionary tactics bubble, because where Mir Kanan and the Bone Shaper are going to be positioned, if they're within range of one, they're within range of the other. So that makes the enemy now -3 to charge. So if they're trying to charge a couple of units, hopefully one of them's going to fail. Only one of them's going to get in. And where he's right up there in the front line, when it's your turn, the turn after that, then he's still going to be within 3 inches. He can just cast that straight over the top, and then he can just move backwards. He can just retreat on out of the way, because now they're going to be locked in against your Immortus Guard and all your Death Riders, and Mir Kanan's just going to walk away and stop them from fighting completely. The other nice thing is, as heartbreaking as it was to get rid of the Bonetie Shrieker, the Soul Stealer Carrion is an MVP in this list. It has a board wide range cast. Just when you cast it, you can set it up anywhere that's visible to the guy that cast it, and it stops enemies with a wounds characteristic of 1 or 2 that are within 6 inches of this endless spell can no longer contest objectives. Now, one of the things that we had with this list, both this list and the other list, is that we have a severe lack of weight of bodies for controlling objectives. So if there's one big objective right in the middle of the table that's highly being contested by myself and my opponent, that means that I now have a great candidate to be able to cast this spell into, and then be able to take it. Even if I've only got the 5 Death Riders, they might have, say, 20 goblins on there, but if I can get the majority of them in range of the Carrion, then I can really bring the odds into my favour, and obviously I would back 5 Death Riders to fight 20 goblins any day of the week, especially if you can get those Death Riders in on the charge, which hopefully we're going to be doing. And that's a lot of it for the changes to the list. Is mainly just the endless spells, dropping it down to a 1-drop, being able to add in the Bone Shaper. So we've now got access to the command trait, the artifact. We're going to be vying for who can go first, because that's massive with this list. Dire Ultimatum is our big sort of go-to trick. We can now shut down one side of the board with shackles, which we couldn't do before. We've got the Immortus Guard to be able to tank an enemy hit to the face, whereas before we only had the 10 Mortec Guard. So it's a lot nicer. Now, we could change up the sub-faction here. I've gone for Null Myriad purely to sort of dispel some of that enemy incoming magic, whether that be damage or sort of debuffing. Again, we don't have a lot of frontal fighting force in this army. It's relying a lot on them tricks, denying the enemy to get in the first place, and being able to sort of pick and gang up on the enemy as we can. We're hopefully tricking them into fighting our Immortus Guard 1 unit at a time. We've got the 2 units of Death Riders that can sort of dogpile in and charge together. They're going to be doing their mortal wounds, their unstoppable charge impact hits as they go in, and we're hopefully going to be picking apart the enemy sort of one unit at a time and picking them off. Now we do have the double Mortek Crawler. They're not in here for damage. I know it's 400 points as a lot for one ability, but they have that lovely Deathly Barrage, which is you roll a dice for each enemy unit that was targeted by this unit's attacks in that phase. You add 2 to the roll if it was targeted by all of this unit's attacks, which, to be honest, I don't think I'm ever going to be doing. I can't think of a situation where that really comes up in hand where you want to be splitting the Mortek Crawler. So it basically goes off on a 3+, but then the Strike Last effect applies to that enemy unit. So again, that's just adding to our control. So we've got Dire Ultimatum that can stop an enemy fighting unless they're fighting Mirkanen, which hopefully you're going to be casting it over the top of a unit. So you're going to shut down one enemy unit that way. We're hopefully going to be throwing Shackles up on a flank and completely denying the enemy from being able to charge in one direction. And then we're going to be firing the 2 Mortek Crawlers, which hopefully on a 3+ are going to be causing the enemy to fight last. And then with the speed of our army, being able to use the Reform Ranks command, having the 2 units of Death Riders, we're going to be able to pick off an enemy unit that's stuck fighting last at any one time. To add on top of that, we do also have our own sort of magical damage. If the Bone Shaper isn't having to use something like a Mystic Shield or cast the Reinforced Contract spell that we've taken, he obviously has his Shardstorm spell, so he can inflict mortal wounds on a 5+ for every enemy in a unit. So if they're bringing big horde units, we've got the Bone Shaper to be able to thin enemy hordes. We have Arcan with his signature Curse of Years, who's going to be able to burn down sort of enemy heroes, big monsters, that sort of thing. There was the thing in the FAQ about even if the enemy passes a ward save against Curse of Years, you still get to roll the dice again. So even though they don't take the physical damage that turn, because you successfully pass the roll of whatever you needed for your Curse of Years, you can keep on rolling basically until they die or you fail the roll. So Arcan got a little bit of a buff in that sense of being able to cut down little heroes. Then also we have the new and added into this list the Nightmare Predator, which I think is a really underrated spell in the Ossiarch army. With a easy casting value of 5, it's usually set up within 12, but obviously because we have Arcan, we get that juicy bonus 6 inches added on, so it's now set up within 18, then it gets to move a further 8, so it's got a 24-inch threat range. Basically, you move it, it can fly. If you fly over the top of an enemy unit, then you roll a dice, and on a 2+ they suffer D3 mortal wounds. Then at the end of the phase you roll another dice, and for every unit within you pick one unit, sorry, so it flies over every enemy unit that it can, and for everyone that you fly over you roll a dice, and on a 2+ they take D3 mortal wounds. Then after it lands at the end of the phase you get to pick another unit within 1 inch. You roll a dice, on a 1 nothing happens, on a 2 to a 5 they take another D3 mortal wounds, and on a 6 they take D6 mortal wounds. So again, it's just another great little tool for being able to chip down sort of backline heroes, anything that the enemy might be hiding, something that you can't draw a line of sight to, you can't get into the thick of the fight. Because we're going to be using our limited resources of Mirkanen, the Mortek Crawlers, shutting down the enemy's big sort of hammer units, things like the Nightmare Predator, Curse of Years, Arcane Bolt, all from a distance, all buffed up by Arcan, is going to be absolutely great for kicking down those little heroes. And come the new General's Handbook, if little wizards are going to be popping up here, there and everywhere, a little 5-wound wizard against the Nightmare Predator, as long as we don't get some sort of well, I mean, it's a bit of a hypocritical way to say it because I'm running Null Myriad myself, but as long as all the little wizards don't get some sort of crazy anti-magic tech built in, then yeah, it would be an easy way to be able to bully down those little 5-wound heroes without a ward save. And yeah, that's basically it for this list today. So, as we said, you know, we're going to be using around the fact that we've got the Dire Ultimatum, we're going to be using the Soul Snare Shackles, and then also with the double Mortek Crawler, we're going to be really focusing down enemy units one at a time, and I think that this list is a much vast improvement over the other one. I'm really happy with the way that the 2.0 list came out, and I can't wait to be able to get this one on the table and be able to redefine it again, as we did from the first list to this list. I'm going to be testing this one out, as you saw from the photo. It's the one that I'm now rebuilding in real life. I got so far through the first list, then I canned that for the old RIP Harvesters list. Now I've canned that list for this one, but thankfully not too many changes. So yeah, we're going to be getting that up and on the table, but until then we will keep theorying it out. I'll be playing it in its current state, testing it on Be That Guy with some bases and some unpainted models as it's going, and hopefully checking out Tabletop Simulator as well, because I've heard so many great things about that. But I hope that this, guys, has shown you how you can sort of take the premise of a list, and there's always ways to improve it. It's a video that I might want to run a separate topic on. It's something that really interests me. I love list building. I think it's a whole sort of separate avenue to the hobby. There's so many roads to be able to go down, choices to make, personal preference, and sort of meta picks or anti-meta picks as you go. But yeah, this is just a little insight into sort of how I think and the game plan that I'm going to be going on in the changes to my list. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Is this list a lot stronger than the first list? Is there anything you would change in this second list? And what are you guys planning on running now that the harvesters have changed before we hopefully get a points drop? I'm hoping when the General's Handbook comes out is when we're also going to get our points changes, and I expect to see a heavy drop in the harvesters and the Mortek Guard to make up for the fact that they absolutely kicked them in the shins for the combo and the way that they worked. But yeah, we're going to leave that there for today. So thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, stay safe, happy wargaming. Psst. Hey you! Did you know that Lakey Wargames now has an official eBay store? You can buy yourself all kinds of pre-painted and new on sprue hobby goodness and support the channel at the same time. There's a link in the description below if you want to check it out. I'd greatly appreciate it, and it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Okay, see you in the next one.